to the UIAAA Connection podcast. GoFan and VNN are proud to be the exclusive sponsor of the UIAAA Connection. Now a combined company, GoFan and VNN provide a seamless integration for digital ticketing and athletic websites. Direct your fans to one place for all your athletic events, communications, and tickets to home and away games. Thank you to GoFan and VNN for their exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch Hunter. Today we have as our special guest and one of a few returning guests, Phil Bad Moon Rison, the Executive Director of the NIAAA. Phil, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Mark. It's great to be with you, and I can always count on you calling me Bad Moon because you tabbed me with that in 2007, and I've been Bad Moon ever since.
Well, we love it. So we're going to, for those that listen every week, we usually have the same amount of questions that we go. Phil already answered those, so I would direct my listeners back to season 1, episode 5. Which is February 1st, 2021. That's the first time he was on the podcast. Back then, he was the Associate Executive Director. So if you want all of his background and all that kind of stuff, check out season 1, episode 5 of the UIAAA Connection. But I've got a whole new list of questions for Phil, the first one being one that I didn't add to the repertoire till season 2. So Phil, let's start with a little bit of a personal question. What's your biggest failure or disappointment in life, and what did you learn from it?
Well, I think any leader that's in leadership's always going to, if they reflect, they're always going to reflect back and wonder, well, I wish I'd have done this, or I wish I'd done that. Culminatively, when I look at them, well, I've had a bunch of failures. I've had a bunch of failures in the fact of decisions that I made as an athletic administrator, decisions I made as an assistant superintendent, and all of those things. Personally, from the standpoint, probably the biggest failure I ever made was I didn't ask Paula to marry me quick enough. I probably should have asked her a whole lot quicker than I did. But for whatever reason, I wanted to make sure she was sure about the fact that she wanted to tag along with someone who loved athletics as much as I did. And so, but personally, I guess, Mark, when I reflect back on my educational career in the sense of working in public education, I was an applicant for superintendent position 13 times. And 13 times I was told, Phil, you did a great job. You had a great interview, but we're going to select this person and this person. And I don't look at that as a failure. I look at that as the fact that I haven't put myself out there. I put myself in those positions for that opportunity, and it just never materialized. I'm very faith-based, so I believe that a higher power pretty much was in control of that decision. And ultimately, I think that's one of the reasons I was able to end up at the NIAAA, in the sense that I felt like that if I'd have taken one of those opportunities, this opportunity might not have presented itself. And so I don't know if that's a failure per se, but, here's the thing I think about failure. When you say, what do you learn? I think the first thing you can learn, and I go back to my childhood teaching, when you fell down, my father would say, get up. When you got tackled, my father would say, get up. When the ball went through the wicket, he would say, get your glove down, do it again. And so I think when you think about the word failure, I don't like the word failure as much as I do the opportunity to learn. And I think all of us in life have opportunities to learn. If we look at everything as a failure, then we're going to beat ourselves up. If we look at it as a growth opportunity and how I can grow from that situation, then I feel like it's going to help me be a better leader in the future, a better person in the future, a better husband, a better grandparent, better father, whatever it may be. I think I'm going to learn from those opportunities to grow.
That is so well said. Thank you for sharing. Since you brought up family, I'm going to ask you this. For those that may have remembered the first time you were on 4 years ago, how old is the new moon rising now?
The new moon is 5 years old. She just started kindergarten. And the little moon rising is in the 3rd grade, and he's 10. So they are, we FaceTime with them every night. And thanks for asking. The joy is, I don't need to say anything. It's just a joy.
Well, let's talk. Well, there's going to be a lot of opportunity to talk about the upcoming conference, but I want you to talk about last week. You and Tal Gropp, the current NIAAA president, made a trip to Alaska. Share with our listeners the reason for the trip, what went on, and the success.
Well, first of all, the trip primarily was an outreach opportunity for Alaska athletic administrators. When you look at the state of Alaska, besides the fact geographically being maybe out of place in the fact of being closely associated with all of our other states, they have terrain issues themselves within the state in the fact of traveling for competition and so forth. So it's been hard for us to generate consistent membership there. And so we wanted to go there as a membership outreach in order to have the opportunity to see if we can meet with some athletic administrators. And so Sandy Wagner, who's primarily the acting executive director for the Alaska athletic directors, and she also works at the state association, and her and Billy Strickland, who is the executive director of the Alaska Activities Association, who is also a former athletic director, who is currently now serving on the National Federation Board of Directors. And they encouraged us to come up and wanted us to teach 504, wanted me to do kind of an opening general session and talking to the athletic directors, and they asked Tal to do a workshop. 6 hours of professional development is what they offered their ADs, and they did it on a Friday. And this past Friday. And the reason they did it on a Friday is everybody was flying in, coming in for the cross-country state championship. So they had all their ADs there. They had, a lot of them there and whatever. We were able to present to 40 individuals. Absolutely outstanding, great dialogue, great interaction. Really excited about that opportunity. And then Tal and I were invited to the cross-country championship, and we were able to maybe help with tear down on that a little bit. And then Brian Hoskins, who is the director of student services for the Alaskan Activities Association, invited us to a high school football game. And we went to the game. It was West Anchorage versus Bartlett. Both high schools there, biggest high schools in classification in Alaska. Played on a Saturday at 7:00, and two outstanding teams. And so we said, absolutely, we will go. And Brian even did better than that. He took us through to the whole official experience. We were in the officials' room, went through all the talking beforehand, went out on the field, etc., walked the field, talked to players, talked to coaches. And so we were just going to watch the game on the sideline, and about 5 minutes left to go before the game started, Brian walks over and says, guys, he said, the two individuals that are coming to run my chains are delayed because they're working another game somewhere else. He said, do you guys mind working the chains for us? And Tal and I both looked at each other and both said at the same time, absolutely, would love to. And so for a quarter, Tal and I got to run the chains at the West Anchorage football game versus Bartlett. And that's a story that we got photos of us holding the chains and so forth. And it was fun. And so we're thankful for that experience. We're thankful for Billy Strickland and the leadership he's providing, Sandy Wagner, the leadership she's providing in Alaska, and then Brian Hoskins, just great individuals, great leaders who are working under different circumstances than maybe some of us here in the lower 48 would probably deal with a little bit. And so appreciative of that opportunity. What we hope is that when we left, our question to them when we left is, if you're not a member of the NIAAA, tell us why not. Because we want you to be a member of the NIAAA. We want you to be engaged in our network, and we want to offer you the tools and the toolkit that we offer our other athletic administrators. But thankful for that opportunity. I didn't realize that I would be on the plane for about 8 to 9 hours, but it worked out that way, and everything worked out. And I know I had to catch up on my sleep a little bit on that Sunday when I got back.
That's awesome. So would you take Indy to Seattle to Anchorage, or?
I did. Coming back, going out, I went, basically Alaskan Air goes from Indianapolis. So I went to Seattle, and then from Seattle to Anchorage. But coming back, I took a red eye on Saturday night. So I left at 12:35 on Sunday morning a.m. And Anchorage, Alaska Airline does not run a direct to Indy, so I had to come back Delta. So I had to go through the wonderful Atlanta airport. And so I went from Anchorage to Seattle, from Seattle to Atlanta, from Atlanta to Indy. So a lot of flying time, sitting time, and waiting time.
And you got home in the middle of the afternoon on Sunday.
I got home about 4:30. Yeah, 4:30 in the middle of the afternoon on Sunday. Yes, sir.
All right, Phil, let's have you talk about, you got to the NIAAA office and you were the associate executive director, and now you're the executive director years later. Talk about what's changed in the office, how the office has grown, how it's changed, how new personnel have come on, and share that with our audience.
Okay. Well, first of all, you're right, Mark. I came to work on June 1st, 2016, and worked a month with Bruce Whitehead and with Mike Blackburn in that transition. And then was fortunate enough to work with Mike until 2022, until January of 2022. And just what a role model for me to work with and under, and walk side by side and to drink from that fountain. But since that time, really, and Mike and I working together, the fifth strategic plan established a copywriter position. So we established that, and that's Justin Chapman, who has eyes on everything that comes out of our office from the standpoint of the written document, the document in the sense of when we send out communications to our members and to other correspondents, looks at all of our leadership training manuals and helps with writing press releases and whatever. Just been a great addition to our team. And we hired Justin right during the middle of COVID. Matter of fact, interviewed him in the boardroom with separated kind of in the corners of the boardroom and had masks on, and interviewed him during that process. We've also brought on board an administrative assistant. That was Alex DeBose, who is now our leadership training coordinator, manager, and director, and leads that. And now we have Kathy Donaldson, who is our administrative assistant. And I often tell everyone that if you're having a bad day, call the NIAAA and talk to Kathy. When you get finished, you'll realize you're not having a bad day, because she's going to make you feel just wonderful, to the fact that she's had the opportunity to talk to you and to share with you, and the fact that her disposition will just be a positive flow to what's going on with you and your work life. During that process, since I've been on board as the executive director, we added the position of TPG. Primarily, we signed an agreement with the Teal Properties Group, which is formerly referred to as TPG, which basically we allow all of our marketing rights to go through them for a guaranteed amount annually. But we hired Cole Morris, who is a graduate of IU, who was working at IU, who also prior to working at IU had experience through IMG, and also worked with Boston College and worked with the Philadelphia 76ers. And just he's come on board, and his short time, a little over a year now, just been a great addition to our team. And he has an office space here in our office and attends all of our staff meetings, and just as we view him as a part of our team. But his job is singular and focused in the fact that he primarily works with marketing and selling the NIAAA sponsorships and opportunities for those individuals out there that want to be engaged in education-based athletics. Nellie hadn't changed much. She was hired right before me, in a sense, and at that point she was hired as a membership chair. But when Cheryl Van Paris retired, Nellie stepped in and also took on the role of certification coordinator and manager. And so she's kind of dual role a little bit in doing both membership and certification. And then we still have Patty. Patty's the dean of the NIAAA, and I remind her of that often. She's been with us since 2005 and just has great passion for what we do and serving our members, and it's been so engaged in the conference and with her work, and with Becky coming on board and with Rich coming on board and us adding that extra associate position. We've been able to relieve her a little bit of some of her responsibilities with the conference, and Becky's kind of assumed that role and just doing a fabulous job there. And then I don't need to say anything to you about Big Rich. He he's got connections all over the world, and he uses those connections to benefit the NIAAA and to serve our membership and serve it with the humility of a person who cares deeply about what we do and being a true servant leader. So, Mark, when you talk about changes, we're still in the same office space. For you and I, we can always reflect to the fact that the office I'm sitting in today was what you and I know as the boardroom.
Yes.
And we, when we served together on the board, we both were in this room, and I look at this room sometime and I think, how did we do that? And then we grew a little bit there with our office space. Maybe after, I think it was because toward the latter part of my term, we moved down to the room we're currently in. And it's a dual role room. Right now, it's a boardroom in February and in July. And sometimes we meet down there as a staff. But right now, it's a storage room because we're planning for the conference, and all of our boxes we kind of lay out in there and whatever as we prepare those and get those ready for the conference. But not a lot has changed in the fact of that. Decor and everything's still pretty much the same. We did have a remake, renovation. And I do know our 6th strategic plan is going to look at office space and maybe the opportunity to see if we can expand a little bit to grow a couple more offices. And right now, 3 of our colleagues, Justin and Nellie and Alex, work primarily in a communal area and basically have their own area, but noise is an issue. And so we're going to look at that maybe moving forward, and could be one of the 6 strategic plans initiative as the NIAAA continues to look at ways we can serve our members.
That is a great update. Thank you, Phil. Let's have you talk now about the certification program and just the huge growth in that program since you came on board as associate 8 years ago.
Well, if you just look at our social media feeds last month, we had 99 that obtained certification. And the question I always ask athletic directors if they're not certified, and they have the credentials in the sense to apply for a CAA or an RAA or a CIAA or an RIAA or the middle school or whatever, why not? And here's the way I always looked at it as a practicing AD was, I was in charge of the most precious commodity, and that commodity was our students. And it was my job to hire the right people to work with those precious individuals. And so if I am in charge of that responsibility, would I not want to make sure that I have actively applied application to the fact of learning everything I possibly can and being the best athletic administrator I can? And so when you look at our certification program, it's an opportunity for professional growth and personal growth. Personal growth in the fact that you find out as an AD that, there's a lot of things out there I still need to learn about. I still need to know about. Plus, you also develop a network through the process of working with individuals that also have experience. I like to refer to them as white hats. The individuals who blow the whistle, put the ball in play, and let's go. But they are there for a reason because they have the wisdom and experience. And so our certification program is commissioned and certified through the National Certification Commission program. And so therefore, our certification program, CMAA, CAA, is no different than a nurse who obtains a certification program. Any programs like that were a program issues documentation that shows that they meet certain standards. And ours meet those standards. As you and I know, we've gone from basically the CAA, and then we wondered what we were going to do after that. And then we went to the CMAA, and then we had the middle school, and then we had the RAA, and now we have international certification. And all of those are measures of the fact that you value professional development. You want to be the best you can be. And I often used to say that I don't want to be standing in a jury trial where I'm trying to defend our programs and someone says, Mr. Rison, what does CAA mean after your name? And I get the opportunity to share with them that I've done everything I possibly can under the governing body of the National Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association that is accredited and that it has a national certification program. I've done everything within my power to meet those standards in order to serve the coaches that I serve and the student athletes. So I can't speak enough to the fact I'm so proud of our certification committee that people don't realize how hard they work. They work tremendously hard in the fact that processes come in here, but that certification committee's meeting on a monthly, sometimes bi-monthly basis, to the point to where they're looking at standards always, how we're making sure we're meeting those standards. And I've rambled a little bit, and I could continue more on certification, but I will say this to athletic administrators out there. Just because you have that by your name doesn't mean that you're not going to have issues. But I will say this, it also says that if you do have issues, you're prepared and equipped and have tools in your personal and professional tool chest to help you with those.
Absolutely. Let's have you share with our audience now the NIAAA membership and the record growth that we've established over just the last 2 years.
Yeah, well, it's continues to grow, and we're very thankful that often, anytime I think about membership, I think of Mike Blackmer. Mike took that as a personal challenge in the fact that of us being able to obtain dual member states and us to reach out to those. As you know, what we always used to say is they don't know what they don't know. And until they know they have a network out there, they don't know that. I'm so thankful for his leadership in that and how he directed that and moving our association forward with the growth of membership. I'm also thankful to our executive directors, such as a Mark Hunter, and those that have worked tirelessly within their state to be a dual state, but also to get the same message out. As you and I know, the greatest compliment you can have is through word of mouth. And so when someone at a regional meeting, a sectional meeting, a district meeting speaks to the fact of the NIAAA or the UIAAA or whatever it speaks to at that point, that's promotion in the sense of promotion for membership. Membership is vital for the NIAAA. It's our lifeblood. It keeps us going. It, as the old adage, says, it keeps the lights on. We're thankful that California became our 39th dual state last year, and so thankful for Ralph and Susan Trixton and the leadership they're providing in California and the step that they took in order to get their members in a dual membership state. So membership's ongoing. It's a seed that maybe sown 5 years ago, 6 years ago, or whatever, that ultimately continues to be watered and nurtured and whatever, and we hope it grows. As you look at membership across the country, we have some great pockets of excellence. Section 1 is 100%. Section 4 is 100%. Section 5 is 100%. When you look at that, and when we say 100%, as you know, we base that capacity on the number of member schools who are members of the National Federation of High School. So with that being said, we have some great pockets of excellence, and we continue to grow west. And with California doing what they're doing, with our initiative in Alaska, we're looking at Montana, want to reach out to them and continue to work with them as they grow. And then we've got some issues. We need to work in the South a little bit with Texas. Primarily, we would love to see Texas be a dual state. Texas has over 1,400 plus athletic administrators, and they're not our biggest state as far as athletic directors. That's California, but there's 1,400 there, and we would love to have those. Right now, what we have from Texas is what we call state members, national members only, meaning they join the NIAAA, and that's about 350 members. So we have some opportunity there. Same thing in Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana as we continue to work through that. And that's something that as a staff we talk about daily. And basically at the NEDC meeting, we share information with that and continue to work with our executive directors who, as I said, are basically the front porch and done just an outstanding job in promoting membership.
Let's have you talk about the NIAAA Professional Development Academy. And it's obviously been around for quite some time now, but it was in its infancy back when you first came on board as the associate executive director 8 years ago.
Yeah, well, when you think about the academy and the team, and prior to that, we go back to three guys that kind of led that from the standpoint of Jim Watkins, one of my mentors, Dr. John Olson, and then Jim Teff. And that was kind of the first establishment of what we would nowadays we call the PDA Academy team. And they were kind of the leaders of developing and implementing curriculum. Nowadays, that team primarily consists of 14 individuals. I refer to we call it our Professional Development Academy team, but primarily to me, it's our curriculum team. So when you look at their roles and responsibilities, they oversee all of the teaching and learning components that the NIAAA puts forth for our members, for universities, and so forth. So when you think about LTC leadership training, when you think about certification, when you think about the QPA, when you think about cohort, when you think about different educational initiatives, they have their tentacles and their hands on all of that. And so basically it's a stipend position, and they meet 3 times a year. Meet right before the board meeting in February and in July, and then they meet in September right before the coordinators meeting. And they coordinate and they work primarily with the state coordinators in implementing our leadership training programs and all of our programs within our state. When you look at that structure, that governance structure and how it works, it's just been fabulous when you think about it in the sense that when you're talking about 16,000 members and trying to get the message out through the state's teaching courses, through our online courses, through offering courses at the national conference, through webinar courses, and then our certification program in which we're trying to keep accredited and keep that current to the point to where our members, so we're constantly reviewing our test. And then the biggest, thing right now is the cohort. You look at our cohort, and when we talk about the cohort, to me, you talk about learning together. And so therefore, I get to be with like-minded individuals, depending on the discipline that's chosen, whether that's a executive leadership cohort, whether that's a mentoring cohort. And then the biggest thing, and right now what's taking off like crazy, is nothing but our quality program assessment. And that in itself keeps those 14 individuals very busy. Those 14 individuals, none of those 14 individuals has one responsibility. They have multifaceted responsibilities. So you could take one of those PDA members and they might work with leadership training, but they also might work primarily with the QPA. They might work with primarily certification, or they might work with state coordinators, or they might work with new course revision or new course development. And so all of those components are, to me, our curriculum team, and it's vital. Rich Barton leads that team as our associate. He oversees the professional development team and works with them in the capacity of implementing all of our programs educationally. And I'm thankful for those individuals who serve on that. Most of them are individuals who have given tremendously to the NIAAA and have a wealth of experience and knowledge in the roles and the capacity in which they're working.
So let's talk a little bit more about the QPA and give a special shout out to Don Bales, of course, because people don't know this, but he doesn't spend like 1 or 2 hours a week on it. He spends like 5 or 6 hours a day. I mean, talk about currently how many cohorts we have for it and one that we're opening up. And I think because of there's so many applicants now, we've had to change how we're going to recognize these people. So dig into the QPA a little bit more.
Well, as you said, the growth is tremendous. And again, hats off to Don Bales and what he's done in leading the quality program assessment recognition. And Don took it personal. He is a person who believes in validity and validating results. And so through the standards of, our course and those 10 best practice standards, schools, athletic administrators could apply for a quality program assessment, and they would be assigned a mentor. And then that mentor would work with them from the beginning until the end. There would be 2 course reviewers who would review all of the material submitted to make sure that it meets the qualifications of the highest standards. And Don, beside all of that, would be working with those individuals. Through the growth, it was not sustainable that we continue to do it that way. So, as you said, we've added cohorts. So we now do all of our quality program assessment through cohorts, and we'll be starting our 4th QPA cohort this month, and we have it scheduled out. We try to take anywhere between 12 to 15 in a cohort. So when you think about that, here's what we need to think about. If you got 15 cohorts, that's 15 mentors. Then that's 30 reviewers. And those individuals are donating and dedicating their time to serve the NIAAA, to serve schools in order to make sure that the high standards are met. We have in the past recognized the quality program award recognition at the annual meeting at the conference. Because of the volume this year, we're going to be recognizing 25 schools. 2 international schools will be among those 25 being recognized. And so we've moved that to what we refer to as the former board reception. And we will have our normal fellowship with the former board reception, and then from that roll right into the quality program assessment recognition part of that at the end of that, to recognize those 25 schools and to give them a place to where they can celebrate the success that they've had. It's not easy, and I'm going to say this: I'm sitting here, and as engaged as I've been in the NIAAA, I never did a QPA. And people would say, why? Well, number one, time. And number two was we didn't offer it as a cohort then. I like the cohort model because I really feel like that learning together with others is powerful. And it helps us in the fact of, I'm not in this alone, I'm working with someone. The mentoring concept of walking side by side with someone is so powerful. And so it's really a good process. We're excited about the growth. We want to continue to meet the needs of our members. So we've looked at streamlining it a little bit, and everything's now uploaded on Final Forms. And so that's been a really, instead of the old, instead of the old 5 flash drives we used to get or whatever, we can now access it through our platform, and we can go in and check for those. And it makes it a whole lot easier for our mentors and our reviewers, and for our schools who are uploading their supporting documentation.
And that is so well said. Before the 5 flash drives, the very first of the QPAs, a folder that was 4 to 5 inches thick, not a 3-ring binder, not 1 per school, but 3.
Yep.
And 3 schools in the Salt Lake district. So there's 9 3-ring binders, 4 to 5 inches thick. Can you imagine what that was like? So
there was a lot of trees gone there. You're right.
Yeah.
So it is much better. And again, let me, you touched on it, Mark, but let me highlight it. Don has informed us that he will be stepping down in Tampa. And so as we've worked through that process, primarily our QPA team of our Professional Development Academy has been Don, Josh Scott, who is a district AD in Springfield, Missouri, Michael Gatley, who has done the QPA process and been one of our reviewers and mentors before, and then Mike Ellison, who has also done it. So they're going to assume the role, and they're going to, it's kind of like, and I can say this because I'm an old Cincinnati Reds fan, and I don't care, he still deserves to be in the Hall of Fame for his baseball actions, but it's kind of like losing Pete Rose. You're getting ready to lose Pete Rose, and Don has kind of led that charge and that drive, and just been a strong advocate for validating the validity of what you do as an athletic administrator through education-based athletics.
No question. And I'll throw a special shout out to Don. And you may not know this, Phil. Don is the one that brought me to the national faculty in 2000. So this conference marks my 25th year as a national faculty person, all thanks to Don, who saw something in this newcomer from Utah and took me under his wing. And yeah, it's amazing how that happens.
Absolutely. He's a dear friend to both you and I, but he's a dear friend to a lot of our colleagues across the country.
Well, so we're getting towards the end, Phil, and I want to give you a chance to address the national conference. So this next question is a three-pronged question. I want your observations about the last three conferences after COVID. So first was Denver. We were still in mask. Then the record conference in Nashville. And then, of course, last year in Orlando. So I'll turn it over to you.
Well, you kind of summed it up. Really, the Denver conference was tough. We were coming out of COVID, still under some certain constraints as we operated there within the Denver Convention Center. It seemed like that the pendulum would switch every so often. We would plan for something and then something else would happen with the Denver convention. But it was a great location, wonderful facility there in Denver. And we were able to get back to being active. That was so important. That was vital. And it's kind of like after having the virtual year, the year before the Denver, it was vital for us to get back to in person and to be there and to see one another. We are the NIAAA, but we are relationary in the fact that we want to see our colleagues. And sometimes we may only see our colleagues at the national conference, but it's almost like we just saw them yesterday and was sitting down over a cup of coffee or enjoying some fellowship with them. Nashville, what do you say? I mean, that's our record. That's our role model in the sense of the growth. You can't say anything bad about the Gaylord. It's a beautiful facility. It's an indoor facility. You're there. We had a few issues in the fact that we ran out of rooms and we couldn't get more. We couldn't get any additional rooms. But it's a great facility. We've been there numerous times. Matter of fact, I can remember in 2007 when I was tagged Bad Moon Rison. I was given a card by a guy named Mark Hunter, who was the awards chair, as I received in the 2007 banquet in Nashville, there at the Gaylord, my DSA. And I still got the card that you gave me that day. I have every card that's ever been given to me. And I have that card. I have them all in a file. And someday my daughter said, "What are we going to do with these?" I said, "Well, you're going to look back and say your father was, had some influence with some friends who thought enough to send him a card, or you're just going to take it to the dumpster and throw it in the dumpster." But I feel like it's important enough if someone writes a card, I'm going to keep that card. So, Nashville is a hotbed from the standpoint, I really feel like driving. Proximity makes it really an attractive site. Got to be honest, don't know if we'll be able to go back. As we continue to look to the future, the pricing that we're getting is not advantageous to our athletic directors. And I know that everyone would like to go to Nashville. We've looked at going downtown Nashville, which could be an option. The Gaylord is probably the premier spot for that. So with that, I took over right after Nashville. That's when Mike retired. And so going into Orlando, I was a little bit skittish in the fact, first of all, we had been to Mickey Land 8 times already. And I'm going, this is going to be the 9th time. I just, and then that was our second largest conference. So whatever it is, people have turned out, which springboards me into this. We currently right now for Austin are at 2,100. We are on record pace to break Nashville. Don't know if we'll get there, but our pace as we look at it week by week, we're on a record pace to break the Nashville record in Austin, Texas. I think our members always like it when we go to a new location. I think that's exciting to them, and I think this is exciting to them. Austin being a college town and being known for, having great country music, et cetera, et cetera. I think our members are looking forward to it. I got to tell you, and our colleagues that we have on our thoughts and prayers right now in the Tampa, St. Pete area, and that area right there that are getting ready to get slammed by the hurricane. We're scheduled to go to Tampa after Austin. I'm excited about that because let's not forget that we were scheduled to go to Tampa in 2020, the virtual year, when we had to cancel the conference. Right. And so really excited about Tampa because we were excited in because we'd been into some planning stages with them. So praying for the best, what's going on down there with the hurricane, and that the damage is very minimal, and that there's no loss of life, and that our members and all citizens and are safe and out of harm's way, hopefully here real soon. So, when we look at the conference, and I'll kind of sum that up, we always at our delegate assembly ask questions. Would you like this city? Would you like this city? So we do straw poll questions and whatever. It's interesting. If you look at our schedule, we're scheduled out now till 27. So in 26, we're going back to Phoenix, Arizona. And really excited about that, as that area has grown up tremendously and really experienced some growth. And then for our 50th, we're going back home. We're going to Kansas City. And looking forward to that opportunity to celebrate our 50th anniversary where we originated and where we started in Kansas City, Missouri.
That is great. We're going to finish up with a couple of questions, Phil. The first one being, I want 2 reasons from you to ADs out there, young and old. 2 reasons why you need to attend the national conference in Austin.
Well, it's real simple. Number one, you need to network. And you don't need to network just within your state. You need to network primarily within your national scope and scene. We've tried to do things to make it the best professional development opportunity for an athletic director, and it's the best professional development conference for interscholastic athletic administrators in the world. We'll have 48 workshops this year. We'll teach every course. There will be hot topics related to AI, related to mental health and wellness, related to sports law. There will be opening general session speakers, and closing general speakers that will challenge you and motivate you. But here's the reason you need to attend. You need to grow yourself, and you need to see at a national scope that what you're doing is making a difference as an athletic administrator. And the most important people you serve is your community. And maintaining community is so vital as we move forward with education-based athletics. So if you're not looking at going or attending, go to your principal, go to your superintendent and say, I want to grow. I want to be better. And I feel like by attending this conference that you will grow and improve. And here's a question I always ask when I go somewhere to speak. How many of you have been to the national conference? And a lot of them raised their hand. And the question I ask them after that is, it just took one. How many of you come back? And it's the same hand stay up. It just takes one time for you to come and visit the national conference and to understand the enormous opportunities for you to grow as a leader within the professional development offerings of our conference.
That is well said. We'll finish how I finish every podcast these days, Phil. What questions should I have asked you that I failed to ask you?
Well, the only thing I would say is, and I've had several ask me here lately, Phil, what's the difference? What's the difference sitting in the chair you're sitting in now compared to the chair you sat in as an associate? And I got to tell you that the difference is that I lose a little more sleep. I deal with a little more paperwork from a business aspect component of maintaining accounting, maintaining life insurance, maintaining liability insurance. Those things sometimes are not fun. What's fun is what Rich and Becky get to do, engaged with our members in a capacity of servants, of serving our organization. And at the end of the day, I am so thankful and blessed to be sitting in this chair. And I don't take it for granted for one day. Thankful every day I get up to come in here and serve our members. I look forward to those opportunities to serve. And so, it's just, I'm in a different role now. And I liked my role 6 years that I was in 2 years ago. I like my role now. But at the end of the day, it takes our whole village and our whole team and our whole office staff to serve our 16,000 plus members.
And on that note, that wraps up this edition of the UIAAA Connection. Again, our special guest today has been Phil Bad Moon Rison, Certified Master Athletic Administrator, the Executive Director of the National Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association. Phil, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate the opportunity to share.
For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.